Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Nona from thealignedlover.com. This is part 2 in my series where I look at the relationship between makeup and mid-face length. In the first video, I went over longer and shorter mid-faces, and in this video, I'll go over makeup looks for a more moderate mid-face length. Now, disclaimer, if you tend to be very obsessive and overly critical or overanalyze your face, I don't recommend watching this video because I just don't think it's good for your mental health. If you're always looking at your photos, picking yourself apart in the mirror, don't watch this video. But if you genuinely get enjoyment out of studying your features, like contemplating the different ways that makeup can exaggerate and kind of distort your image, like it genuinely makes you happy, it doesn't cause you like pain, yeah, I recommend watching this video. Also note, I don't believe in balancing the face to comply with an artificial like beauty standard, but I do believe in understanding how makeup can distort our features. And in this video series, I really focus on presenting all of the features of the face harmoniously. Now, before we get into the makeup looks, briefly, what is the mid-face? In popular terms, midface is the section from the brow bone to the upper lip, and midface length is relative to the other thirds of your face, the forehead, and then the lower face. So if you have a longer midface, that section from the brow bone to the upper lip tends to take up more space compared to the overall facial length. And if you have a short mid-face, it's the opposite. And if you have a moderate mid-face, it's somewhere in between those two. Now, how is mid-face length affected by makeup? Here is a very simplified example of how different makeup, specifically eyebrow definition and lip definition, can create the illusion of a shorter or a longer mid-face. And this also talks about how different makeup can kind of compress the visual interest centrally or expand the visual interest outwards. So where are you drawn to looking? Like, where is your attention distributed on the face? So in terms of the biggest patterns I saw in the longer and shorter mid-face video, the shorter mid-faces benefited from a more central, kind of compressed distribution of makeup or emphasis of the features, where it goes kind of like inwards, a little bit more verticality up and down so that it stays within the triangle. And for longer mid-faces, I found that they look best with more expansive, widening, sweeping kind of makeup that emphasizes with not verticality. So our first example is the beautiful Jessica Alba, and she has a very balanced face. Most of the time, if you have a moderate mid-face length, you probably have a more oval shaped face as opposed to short mid faces that tend to belong to maybe round face shapes or diamond face shapes, or longer mid face lengths that tend to belong to more oblong or maybe even square face shapes. This isn't like a hard and fast rule, but that is a trend that I have observed. So with this more moderate kind of facial proportion, a more moderate strategy or approach to makeup, I think looks best. You're preserving that balance that is just such an inherent quality, an innate quality in these very moderate beauties. So for Jessica, her makeup looks best when all of her features are equally prioritized and presented so that that beautiful symmetry and natural harmony just comes through very cleanly, very crisply. So this uses a mix of both the short and the long mid-face techniques. In terms of the short mid-face techniques, we see more centrally applied blush to start with. We see a little bit of that verticality with the lashes, slightly more inward brow origins and not too much of an arch, not too wide of a brow. But we also get a bit of width from the elongation of the eye makeup towards the outer corners, and the lip and cheek are a little bit more moderate, not heavy or overly matte. Plus, I do think a little bit of sweep from the center of the cheek upwards is great. So both of these looks are perfect, and Jessica's face just shines. All of her features are so honored by this makeup. Now here on the right, I think these are a little bit less great at presenting her natural shapes and features. Again, this is for presenting the natural shapes of the face, and that is not the only valid approach to makeup. It's just really about looking at, the effects of makeup and how your features look. I am in no way saying that makeup is only for looking like beautifully harmonious and conventionally pretty. So I just want to put that out there. So here we got a more elongated, heavy brow that seems to be even straighter than her usual brow here. And then we get a lot of outward emphasis with a vertical emphasis of the eye. So it seems like this brow is straighter and the eye is like more curvy and expansive. So it creates kind of like an interesting tension here, which tends to take away attention from the rest of her face. So this really emphasizes the eye region above all else, and I just don't think this particular makeup brings out the more delicate beauty of her eye shape. Now here on the very right, I think this look is just a little too heavy. We have a much more arched, bolder, heavier, wider brow, a lot of emphasis on the eyeshadow above and below the eye, and a lot of lashes more towards the end. So this just really emphasizes the eye region, I would say disproportionately. Plus we get a ton of contour on the sides, and it just takes away from the lovely natural face shape that she has. So I don't think this look is the best for honoring her more delicately balanced features. All right, next up we have Kate Winslet. It was so hard for me to find a picture where her makeup is not like honoring her features, because her makeup usually just does such a beautiful job of emphasizing and enhancing the natural shapes of her face. So she looks great with soft definition, a softer, more gentle arch in the brows, a very moderate kind of eye makeup, nothing too heavy, nothing too crazy. The cheeks get a pop of color and a pop of contour, and the lips get soft definition as well. But here I think she overdoes the arch a little much on the brow, so it kind of messes with that definition, or sorry, the mid-face proportion, because when you really arch the brows, it can make your mid-face look a little bit longer, and it can make your face look a little bit more angular. The eye makeup has more emphasis on the outer corners and the lower lash line, and then there's no color on the cheeks to kind of connect the top and bottom halves of the face. So I don't think this look is as successful at enhancing all of her face. Alright, so this one is going to definitely be a nitpicky example. We have the gorgeous Monica Bellucci, and obviously she is just so gorgeous, but I think that her makeup on the left is just a little bit more successful at enhancing the flow of her face, because the more refined brow shape mirrors her more refined, rounded, but slightly angular facial structure, where she has that fine, delicate, angular bone structure, but on top she has more of that soft, rounded fleshiness. So the brows here are really enhancing that, and the eye makeup is just subtly extended to the sides a bit, just a little bit more elongation there. Now here are some photos of her with slightly more rounded brows and a slightly shortened eye makeup style. She still looks like amazing and beautiful, but I don't think it does as good of a job at reflecting the themes of her face, because this makeup is just missing that little dose of elongation and refinement. And here I think it's just like chef's kiss, that extra pop of detail. Next we have the insanely gorgeous Halle Berry, and here is where hair really plays a part. Hair, bangs in particular, can really distort your proportions, especially if you're so insanely balanced like Halle is. So here on the left, we have just beautiful makeup, perfect brows, perfect balance of width and elongation, along with like a vertical opening of the eyes, the cheeks, and the lip. The definition is just beautiful, gorgeous. You can see all of the contours of her face being honored. Now here with the brows, it is blocking most of her upper face, and instead of framing the eyes, what we get is a framing of the brow bone. And what that does is it kind of squishes this part of her face. We don't get that lovely verticality here. We get more elongation. And with the more nude lip and I would say more outer oriented cheek color, with the bangs, it tends to just frame this portion of her face. So we miss all of that beautiful harmony all throughout. And here, just too much shadow on the outer corners and below the eye, and it's pulling the eye down. And then we get too much contour shadow below the apples of the cheeks. And this is like slightly mirrored by the glossy lip with two tones. So we get emphasis of the shadows, and the shadows. It's all a little bit downward oriented. Next, we have the gorgeous Olivia Rodrigo, and I think she looks best with a slightly straighter brow, not super arched, with makeup that isn't overly flicked out to the side. Again, that mixture of verticality and width, good definition, distributed along the cheeks and lips. Here, I think this slightly thicker, straighter brow is so gorgeous on her, and this more upwards oriented cat eye. I guess you could call it like a modern fox eye rather than the flick very strongly to the sides. Now here, her brows are very arched and curved, which brings the visual, I would say, emphasis outwards. And this is mirrored by the cat eye as well. And then you get a lot of like curve on curve and not enough emphasis drawing the eye inwards, which, it can kind of distort the facial proportions. And we have the overline lip, which kind of mirrors the curves here as well. So I just don't think it's as, I would say, connected as these looks over here. And then here, I just wanted to point out that bangs and brows can really change the face. The bangs here, with the wider, rounder, thicker brows can make your face look a little bit more round. I think this look would look very good on someone with a more compressed, shorter mid-face because it kind of lines up with those themes. And one more thing to know, if you're going to mix baby bangs with higher but thicker brows, you're emphasizing the forehead, right? And then when you wear bigger but kind of like lower set earrings, it emphasizes this in here. So then you can, in a way, elongate the mid-face. So just all of these things to know. And one more thing, if you like blur your upper lip line, that can take away a distinction between the proportions of the face. I know a lot of the videos on the internet are like, if you blur the upper lip, it makes your film shorter, and then your mid face looks shorter. I just don't think that it's an actually effective tip because you have to look at the entire look of the face. So yeah, not trying to hate on Olivia. She's gorgeous. And I know style is more important and expressive than looking particularly harmonious for many people, but just things to note if you're wondering how certain elements can affect the makeup look. And lastly, we have Mandy Freed here. We have gorgeous balance of the brows, the eye makeup, the lip and cheek definition. It's basically what I mentioned in all the previous videos. A note here about earrings: if you want to wear longer earrings, make them very long so that they can make like a different kind of scaling or like they impose a different scaling on your face. If these were shorter, then I would say that it wouldn't do such a good job of making her jawline look as delicate. But here, because we have the longer, bigger earrings and the increased volume on top of the head, it makes her lower face look a little bit more delicate, which I think looks great on her more elven beauty. Alright, now here we have very thick brows, overextended on the inner corners here, but the very extended eye makeup, kind of like what Jessica Alba did in the first slide. So I think that messes with the facial proportions. And then here are very bushy, thick brows with very heavy eye makeup and less definition on the lower face. And this very heavy side part, I think it just puts too much emphasis on this part of the face, and you don't get all of the beauty of the rest of her face. And you get the more delicate earrings, which can also put a lot of emphasis on this area. Try it out for yourself and see. All right, so moderate faces, again, distribution of visual interest is both vertical, central, and a little bit expansive. And I think an oval best represents the kind of like perimeter of their best makeup product application. And just looking at an overall like spectrum here, we can see with the shorter mid-face, it's more exaggerated centrally. And then with the longer mid-face, it's more expansive, and moderate mid-face falls somewhere in between. Now, in the next videos, I'll go into more specific details like different features, widespread eyes, more narrow set eyes, different cheek shapes, all of that. Let me know if you have any requests for that, or if you need any help figuring out your best or most enhancing looks and honoring what your values and goals and intentions are for your personal styling. Check out my services on thealignedlover.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.